Hi there, I'm Kira Woods and thanks for joining me. This card is the Moon card. So this is the next card in the series of the Major Arcana that I'm reviewing. And this is number 18 of the Major Arcana. So let's have a look at this card. You know, this is, for my opinion, one of the more difficult cards to read in a reading because really it's so full of information, and it really is going to be quite influenced strongly by what is around it, like all the cards, but I think this card in particularly, really pay attention to the cards that have come before and after. So let's have a bit of a look. Well, of course, we've got the moon up here, and it's a very large part of the card, and it's we've got these two pillars here. Pillars often indicate knowledge or information. And we've got a dog and a wolf and some sort of crab or crayfish, something crawling up out of the water. And you might notice there's this pathway flowing through the landscape here up into the mountains. You've also got the yods falling down, spiritual wisdom, and you've got lots of blue, lots of water. So we're definitely talking about the unconscious. So what is the moon card about? Well, it's definitely a card that is talking about illusions or masks. Maybe you might think of it as things being hidden behind the scenes. In a reading, you might be thinking about things like people's true nature. What is someone's actions really saying about them? Is the action saying something different than maybe what they're speaking? What's the real agenda at play? What is your intuition saying? It's about psychic abilities. You know, and the moon also represents that shadow self concept, you know, the Carl Jung concept about everyone carries a shadow side, you know, things that we, our instinct or our irrational reactions to a situation, how we project them onto others. So in particular, you know, this card, you know, as I said, so it's about the unconscious. And remember, when you think about the moon, I always like to think, you know, when the moon is shining and it's a full moon or a fairly bright moon, then certain parts of the outdoors are quite illuminated. We can see really well. But there's also elements that are still in darkness, or sometimes the moon reflection creates that shadow, and so you might think you're seeing something, but are you actually seeing it for what it is? So that's sort of the underlying message of things being hidden. So, because, you know, it's that sort of dim light or that vagueness of what is being illuminated, and in terms of how well we see. So in this here, you know, if you think about now these three, you know, this dog, this wolf, you know, they're not fighting, they're not chasing each other, which is what you'd probably sort of expect. No, they're both mesmerized and looking up at the moon. So what it's saying is that in your mind, in your unconscious, and your connection between your unconscious and your conscious, there is a focus that can be drawn upon. What you've got to be careful of is that sometimes when we really delve into our unconscious, our fears come up and they can be a distraction, or they actually can give us great wisdom and insight. Because it's sort of talking about is this, you know, this crayfish or crab thing sort of crawls up out of the pool. It's sort of talking about, it's indicating that there's an unfolding of your unconscious self into your conscious self that wants to inform you about the situation or journey. You know, and that the wolf and the dog are sort of saying the mind is ready for that, and the mind is sort of in a place of acceptance, or sort of it's attained. You know, they're not fighting. That there is, so that there is a sense that if you connect to this card and you pay attention, that there's great wisdom that you can gain and available to you in the situation that's hand. So. But as I said, this, you know, the idea of the shadow concept brings up, you know, that we can also, as I say, project our fears onto the present situation, or our past failures, we think, therefore, make the future a given, when that is not necessarily the case. It's sort of like if we get stuck and held back by our fears, that yes, we'll probably repeat the same situation over. But if we take our fears and see them for what they are, and avoid sort of being stuck in the illusion or the ego, the delusion of the ego, and draw upon instead our intuition and our inner knowing, then we really can find that we have great wisdom and insight into making the most out of the situation or opportunity that has come along to you. So I guess, so the key thing is therefore guard against the illusions that may cause otherwise error in judgment. So that's sort of the challenge of this card. Are you seeing things for what they really are, or are you stuck in the illusion of the shadow or the half lit image that is being presented to you, that's therefore information is missing, and that sort of therefore skews your judgment because you're not really seeing what is true about the situation. On the reverse side, if you follow your intuition and or your psychic abilities or your inner knowing or your sense of listening to your dreams or paying attention to your dreams or allowing them to guide you or prompt you in a situation, then you can use that as wonderful insight into your judgment and evaluation of the situation at hand. It's all a matter of, is the mask true or the mask not true? So in a reading in particular, pay attention to what's really going on. So in your particular situation or the opportunity or that has been asked with this question, pay attention to what is really true going on, and can you be absolutely sure of the information that you've received? Are you getting all the facts? Is someone, or even yourself, telling the full truth, or are they holding back something? Is someone trying to pull the wool over your eyes, in other words, around the situation? Or are you trying to pull the wool over someone else's eyes? Because this, depending on how this shows up in this card, this could represent your actions or your intent, or it could be another person around you. Is what being said and what being done opposing each other, as I mentioned earlier, because that often will represent in this card. Particularly, again, it depends. If you've got a sword card right next to it, it's going to be about communication. If you've got so you look to pay attention to the cards around you. If you've got the High Priestess or the Devil card close by, that the psychic abilities and intuition is going to be extremely strong with this situation. So really pay attention to that. Ask yourself, am I getting misleading information, or do I feel that I'm getting misleading information? Is everything appearing to be pretty good around the situation, but my gut is just telling me something is not right here? Pay attention to that. Your gut is really on the money on this situation. So don't discount it. Don't think, I'm just being a bit of a fool, or that can't be so, because how could they not be an honest and upright and wonderful person because, they came with wonderful references or referrals, or how could they not do what they say they're going to do? This card is saying to you that sometimes people's agendas or their motives in a particular situation, whether it be conscious or unconscious, may not necessarily be in your best interest. So, as I said, this card really says to you, work on your own intuition and pay attention to what is any delusions around you. Are you coming from a place of inner knowing and wisdom and truth, and or are you stuck in the illusion or delusion of your ego and your past and your past failures and your fears? What is the driving force here? In a communication-based reading, you might find that this is saying to you your first impressions are false, that if you're jumping to a decision around something based on first impression, pay attention to that. It's not necessarily true. It was also saying that someone perhaps is not necessarily telling the truth or the whole truth, or they may not know the truth. They could be spin doctoring the situation, so to speak. Pay attention to any what's happening behind the scenes. Are you seeing the full play, or is there a whole element of mastery going on behind the scenes? Do you have a bit of a wizard in your situation who is pulling the wool over your eyes, so to speak? What are your dreams saying? What are your intuition saying? Be sort of, in other words, a healthy skeptic in this situation. It's not a time to make hard and fast decisions because you don't have all the answers. So if you're needing to make a defined decision at the moment, if you can hold back, hold back. If you, because the decision that you make right now may not have all the facts and information, and therefore you may not get the outcome that you most desire. If you do need to make a decision about something in your life, really stop and sit down and really look inside and pay attention to what you know to be true. Pay attention to what your inner self is saying for you, and note if you are being drawn one way or the other due to fear or past failure or something of sort of an ego-based driven decision. So I hope you found that really useful. As I said, I found this one of the more in-depth cards to work through in a reading. It is also therefore one of the most both challenging but also quite inspiring cards to see. And I think every time I look at the card I see something new jumps out at me. So I try and follow that myself. If I'm in a reading and some part of that card just really just catches my attention, I'm really drawn to it, then I think, okay, in this particular reading, that's the aspect of the card that really wants to shine forth and pass on a piece of important information to the question at hand. Thanks so much for joining me. If you'd like a private reading, please go to my website at www.kirawoods.com. Please check out my other YouTubes. I do a weekly reading. I also do monthly readings. Please check them out. Subscribe to my channel if you feel so inclined. Please like and share this video and any of the others that you think others might find of value. And if you can, check out my business page on Facebook and like that as well. Thanks so much. Please send me your messages, thoughts and comments here on YouTube, or please go to my website and send me messages there. I'd love to hear from you, and have you have an absolutely fantastic week, month, year, whatever, wherever it is that you are listening to this video. Hope to catch you again with another video. All the best. Cheers.